Hello and welcome to week 7 in biopsychology, where we are taking on chapter 6, which is a whole slew of different senses. However, even though we're going to be looking at the different senses, we're coming at it from some knowledge we gained studying vision that is consistent throughout the sensation system, and that is that all of the senses entail specialized physiology that channels energy of some kind to a neuron that is specialized in the transduction of that energy into an electrical impulse that the brain can understand. That is consistent across all the different types of sensation that we're going to be talking about. So when we speak of sensation, of course, we're talking about more than those big five. I have a list of all the different sensations that are there. You can see every one of these involves the transduction of some sort of physical energy in the body, sometimes a chemical energy, a chemical change in the body that then triggers an electrical signal to the brain. The course book then goes into hearing, and I discuss balance and movement, and touch, the mechanical senses, and the sensory motor pathway. And that pathway, I want to spend some time on that. Let's take a look at, right here, this image right here. Wanted to spend some time on this image because if you remember when we talked about vision, the visual field was mapped geographically on the occipital lobe. We have the same sort of mapping of the physical body across the somatosensory and somatomotor cortex. And so these cortices are two bands that kind of cross on top of here. When we were talking about the visual pathway, that was the dorsal pathway, went up to the somatosensory somatomotor cortex cortices, because there are two of them, and that area is mapped out like the human body. So you see over by my temples is where the face is, and then up toward the top of my head is my hips and knees, and you see how the whole body is translated across this sort of pathway here. The neurons from the body go up and send sensory information to the somatosensory cortex, which then communicates with the somatomotor cortex to send information back to the body to move the body. We then look at pain and the complex mechanisms of pain to inform the body of injury and to get the body to respond by sending chemicals and pain relievers and inflammation, and to move ourselves out of danger, to make our hand go down and warm that area in order to increase blood flow, all of those things associated with that pathway. And finally, we end up looking at taste, the chemical senses that we have. Now, for the assignments, we have a discussion, and it's a tricky one because what I'm asking you to do is either have a meal or taste something that you feel is unpleasant, or listen to music that you think is unpleasant. And I want you to kind of get introspective about that and think about what is it about this sensory experience that you are finding so distasteful. Share that in the discussion board. You might have some very different ideas. If I was going to do it, I would do it on mushrooms. I would hate doing it. I do not like mushrooms, and there's probably a ton of you out there that love mushrooms, and we could talk about why I don't think fungus should be served on a plate, but to each their own. So share your ideas about things that you don't like and what that sensory experience was. Kind of get deep into that sensory experience. In the quiz, I'm asking you to look at a particular chemical that interacts with our sense of taste, and that is the chemical known as capsaicin. Capsaicin is the chemical that makes hot food hot, spicy hot. There is a index of hotness where like Tabasco sauce will be, or the other hot sauces and whatnot, and all those competitions about how many hot wings you can have and whatnot. The truth is, capsaicin has a clever way of tricking the brain into thinking that there is pain coming from the mouth for those who experience pain. Now, there are individuals who are called super tasters who have the capacity to be able to, I'll say it, taste through the pain-inducing aspect of capsaicin and experience the flavor of the particular hot sauce. I am not a super taster. I am in the active process of creating that. I'm exposing myself to different levels of spice, trying to get on the other side of that to taste this flavor. For all of my life, hot sauces they just burn too much for me to even know what they taste like. And I'm finding out that it's a great taste once you get on the other side of that pain. So I'm asking you in the first question of the quiz to explain how capsaicin fools the brain into thinking there's pain going on. There's not. There's no, well, pain in terms of the experience of pain, but there's no damage happening. It's fooling. It's an illusion. The pain associated with hot sauce is actually an illusion. It's a very real one. We tear up and we respond to it, but nonetheless, it's an illusion. And then I want you to do some research on how they're using capsaicin to treat chronic pain. They're using a chemical that induces the illusion of pain to treat chronic pain. So look that up and provide an answer to that question there. Now, big week, we now have two sort of lab assignments. The first one having to do with hearing and the measurement of sound waves. I bring you to a web-based resource, and the best way to use this resource is to put it onto Google Chrome. It's been built for that particular browser. You can use existing sounds within its library, and you can see the waveform of different sounds. You can also use the microphone on your computer and put any sound in and see the waveform. It's in this digital oscilloscope that measures both the amplitude and frequency of sound waves. So and there's an assignment about your name and getting some screenshots of the waveform for parts of your name. So I want you to do that. The next one, trying to cover all my bases here and the different senses here, has to do with balance. And it's reflecting of some I used to do yoga, and reflecting on some of the practices within yoga for getting into balanced positions and how we use multiple senses in order to establish our place in space, particularly when we're in a precarious position requiring us to have delicate balance. And I demonstrate in this particular assignment how we can use a small object and vision in order to give ourselves another cue to help us in our balancing and establish ourselves in some yoga positions that are usually pretty difficult, if not impossible, to sustain for very long if we're just looking around, or better yet, if we have our eyes closed. It's almost impossible to maintain some of these stances. So I'm having you do these kind of experiments on yourself, on other people. You're reporting out, there's for each one of these, there are some reflection questions. So make sure that you present this assignment almost like a lab report. Here's what I did, here's the results, and here's the questions that you wanted me to answer about it, even though there's some repeat, and do that for each one of those assignments and submit those. This is kind of fun to share with your family, have them speak into that oscilloscope, have your people in your family get into those yoga poses, and experimenting with that should be kind of fun. So enjoy this week. Enjoy this set of assignments. I will see you online in the discussions. Take care.